Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Michigan Black History Month digital special. I'm Mid-Michigan Now's Mike Woolfolk. We have teamed up with our sister stations in both Kalamazoo and Traverse City for this special. Over the next several minutes, you will see stories from around the state focused on Black history here in Michigan, and we will kick things off with a look at where you can learn about some outstanding athletes. Deshaun Johnson has details about a local Hall of Fame in Flint that honors some major achievements.
The Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame highlights local Black athletes from the high school level all the way up to the professional level. The hall is run by a committee and dates back to 1983, and since then they have inducted 38 classes of inspirational Black athletes from Flint.
It's been a well-kept secret throughout the state, but not in Flint.
If you are a fan of high school and other local sports in the Flint area, then it might not come as a surprise to you just how much athletic talent this city has produced. From individual players to coaches and even entire teams as a whole, Flint has tons of sports history in its foundation. However, outside of local fans, that history can sometimes be forgotten, but that's where the Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame steps in.
We needed to do something to recognize our African American men and women student athletes. They needed to be recognized for everything that they have done.
Hosted inside the Gloria Coles Flint Public Library, the Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame has a dedicated kiosk and video display for those in the community looking to learn more about Flint sports history.
It lists all the information from all of our athletes throughout the years. You could either come here and look at it through the kiosks here or on the big screen.
Hall of Fame President Anthony Alexander hopes young athletes are able to visit the display, read more about their sports heroes, and come to realize they can be just like them. And that message isn't just resonated by the Hall of Fame itself, but also from athletes that have been inducted into it.
Chase your dreams and go after it, you know what I mean? And actually put hard work and time into it. Don't let nobody tell you that what you're dreaming is too big or too small.
In history, you have to find out, you have to realize what was done before you got here, okay, and then continue to carry that torch forward.
So, who are the 2025 inductees for the Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame? Deshaun continues his reporting with a look at the names on the list and the big night coming up for them.
Let us recognize the induction of all of our 2025 inductees to the Greater Flint African American Sports Hall of Fame.
It's a very positive experience, not only for the athletes, but for the community at large. And it lets them know if you continue to work hard, you can get there also.
Most of this year's class have something in common. They all played a part in Flint dominating the high school basketball scene in the 1980s. From individual athletes to entire rosters and teams as a whole, each of these local sports legends played a part in establishing Black athletes' role in mid-Michigan sports.
Our athletes, they are role models for our younger generation. And again, they have the strong work ethic.
Also being honored, Rico Phillips, a community leader who has worked to expand interest in ice hockey among Flint area youth.
I wasn't trying to create the next NHL player, but what I was trying to do is create an experience for our kids in our community like none other. So many kids don't even understand the skill that they have within them just to try something new and try something challenging.
Each individual named here today will have their names inscribed into history.
To have this journey so many years later and to be represented not only of my race but certainly my community, and for this body of people to kind of look at our sport and realize that it belongs a part of this as much as any other sport. It's just a true honor.
Now today is just the announcement of this year's inductees, but the official ceremony and dinner will take place on Sunday, March 23rd. Reporting in Flint, Deshaun Johnson, Mid-Michigan Now.
Deshaun, thank you. The main branch of the Detroit Public Library, the Detroit Institute of Arts, and the Michigan Science Center, they are all in what's known as Midtown Detroit. It's the center point of the Motor City's cultural center. And it also boasts an attraction that is considered among the leading institutions of its kind in the world. Here now is a look at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History.
We are very excited and honored to be celebrating our 60th anniversary this year.
Over its 6 decades of preserving Black history, the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History has grown from humble roots in a trailer to a beautiful 125,000 square foot building. Jennifer Evans is the Senior Director of Exhibitions and Collections.
We are continuing the legacy of Dr. Wright and inspiring people toward learning about their own history, learning about other people's history as a way of inspiring their life, educating themselves, but also building self-esteem.
She speaks of the museum's founder, the late Dr. Charles Wright, an OBGYN who was on more than a mission to deliver babies.
I like to think of it as Dr. Wright really just loved education and wanted to share that love of education with other people.
The Wright, as it's known, houses more than 35,000 artifacts and has numerous exhibits. Some are temporary, like Gems, which features various pieces from the museum's vast collection. Other exhibits are permanent, like the signature And Still We Rise, an immersive trip through time from slavery to civil rights. It's an emotional journey.
Most visitors remember the slave ship in And Still We Rise because it is emotionally impactful. And so even if they are here for the first time or came as a child and are coming back as an adult, that's where they want to go.
There are truly some fascinating things to see here at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. For instance, this sculpture, that is the late, great Muhammad Ali, and it is made from car bumpers. All of this is just a short drive down I-75 from the Flint area, and it is well worth that drive to celebrate Black history, not only in February, but year-round. Well, you may not realize it, but the freeways you travel, I-475 in Flint, I-375 in Detroit, they were both built where homes and businesses once stood, communities that were destroyed under the government's urban renewal plans. To preserve a little of that history, dedicated people have archived it. Here's Courtney Bennett on a special exhibit in Lansing.
You can't go back and visit these homes and businesses that once stood in Detroit because they don't exist. But you can come here to Lansing to the Michigan History Center, where all of the history is preserved thanks to the Black Bottom Archives.
Baba Jamon Jordan, the City of Detroit historian, describes Black Bottom as like one of the most historically significant, culturally rich neighborhoods in the state of Michigan.
Destruction of Black Bottom happened in the late 50s and early 60s. The city made the decision to destroy the neighborhood to make way for the freeway.
So I think being able to share, the legacy of Black Detroiters that existed there and who developed something that still resonates decades later. It's something that we, want to share across the state of Michigan.
The Black Bottom Archive started after a group of young Black Detroiters weren't familiar with Black Bottom.
Recognizing that if they weren't familiar, that there's tons of other people who also aren't familiar with that story. And so it became a project of getting the word out and spreading the word.
The archives are filled with pictures and stories of people who lived in this neighborhood.
We've even come across someone who had a video of like their family moving out of their house in Black Bottom.
Lex Draper, Garcia Bay, and Marcia Black say the archives are celebrating 10 years this year, and this is the first time the exhibit is outside of the Detroit city limits.
Wonderful grassroots community organization, and this exhibit brings to light a piece of history that we don't have represented in our permanent galleries.
This is a partnership between the museum and the archives. Jillian Reese says that this tells a powerful story.
I think that the story of home, of having a voice with your community and in your community resonates with people.
Although the Black Bottom Archives doesn't have a permanent home, they hope one day they will have their own space. For now, though, you can head to the state capitol.
The work that we're doing continues to be important and relevant to not just Black Detroiters, but, people all over.
We hope this also raises a question for them around what role they can play in preserving their own community stories.
The Black Bottom Street View will be here until after Thanksgiving, so there's still time for you to come and check it out. Reporting in Lansing, I'm Courtney Bennett.
Thanks, Courtney. Great exhibits in Flint, Detroit, and Lansing. Black History Month has been about more than just checking out exhibitions that are focused on the past, though. It has also been about exploring ways to make a difference right now and into the future. we brought together 3 prominent Black leaders in the Flint community to talk about just that. Here's Stella Daskalakis with that conversation.
We reached out to 3 trusted Black leaders in Genesee County to talk about the issues facing Black youth today and the positive actions being taken to mentor and encourage their success. We welcome celebrity chef Nate Brown, involved dad Sean Hart, and business owner Charlie Dobson in the middle. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
It's an important discussion. And one statistic I found, the Annie E. Casey Foundation last September reported that Black students are twice as likely as their white peers to be in inadequately funded school districts. Then there's the issue of getting kids off the streets so they don't get involved in crime and gangs. But there's good news too, because leaders like you are stepping in to help guide Black youth and guarantee their success. So, Chef Nate, I'll start with you. What do you see as a major challenge facing Black youth?
With me being the chef, I'll obviously start with diet. We as a community as a whole just don't eat the right way. And there's an old saying, you are what you eat. Then another thing, just the exposure to something positive, exposure to positive careers, positive missions, positive purpose. We just don't get that like we should.
Points well taken. Sean, in your work, what are you seeing? Because you're around a lot of dads and youth.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing, right? Is a lot of, unfortunately, the statistics in Genesee County is really high where there are single mom-led homes. And so the absence of a father, right? And a lot of times it's not because the dad doesn't want to be there. There's a lot of barriers that keep dad away. And so when a child does not have access to a father, it's damaging, right? The statistics talks about how obesity is connected to it, suicide, low self-esteem, high school dropout, pregnancy, all the things when a father is not involved, for that guidance. And so that is what we do to try to dispel and to eradicate.
And we thank you for what you do because, as you mentioned, it's very important. Charlie, you're in and among a lot of young people. So, and you and I run into each other all the time at the gym and in other places. What do you find works best in getting kids to truly tell you what's going on in their lives?
What works for me is normally creating a safe space for them, reassuring them that it's okay to make mistakes, that in spite of the mistakes that they make, that they're still loved. And also letting them know, like, even though I love you, the way I critique them and guide them, give them instruction, it matters to them too. And I think children respond to love more importantly, and letting that be the foundation of my instructions, the teaching, the mentorship that I provide for students. So.
And we'll go back to you, and then we'll get to Sean, and we'll get to Nate. Through swimming. Swimming seems like a wonderful way to connect with youth.
It is.
How does it work for you? What do you find in that pool or through activity works?
What tends to work is allow them to get to know me. Because swimming, I have to maneuver their body and be hands-on with them. It's allowing them to know that I'm a safe space for them, that as they're learning a new skill, that I can be there for them. I'm able to support them, that, at the same time, it reassures their parent as well that you have someone who has your child's best interests in mind. And a lot of my students and families, they consider me a part of their child's village, which is very meaningful because they know that their child, they depend on me in some way, shape, or form for their growth and development as well.
So important to have that reassurance, to have that village. Chef Nate, you use the preparation of food to preserve the culture and heritage. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Whenever doing cooking classes, I always talk to kids about just finding healthier options to things that we already eat. And along with that, I think it's important to actually sit at the table and just eat as a family and have those conversations. And I talk about all the time, like there's a lot of healing at the dining room table. And it's not just what we're consuming, edibly, but, the conversations, that safe space. Yeah. You're sitting down enjoying a good meal. You get to just let your day go and just sit and enjoy that time. I did it, with my son, with my kids growing up. My youngest right now, we've put a certain effort into at least once or twice a week, sit down as a family and put the electronics down, have a good meal and a good conversation. We sat one day, I asked my wife, how much was gas when you graduated high school? And when she said it, my daughter's ears perked up and it started a whole conversation about all kind of things that have happened in the last, 20 years, just as talking about gas, while eating dinner.
I tried to do that with my kids. It's that captive audience. And speaking of captive audiences, Sean, you're a motivational speaker. What do you find resonates? What's important in what you do when you're trying to get through to the dads and the youth?
Yeah, the biggest thing is identity, right? Because a lot of times they believe that they are their worst moment. And so it's my role, it's my job to come in and to not only inspire, but to empower. It's one thing to be motivated for the moment, but it's like, how do I sustain that? And so my approach has always been about empowerment, has always been about identity. Why? Because I struggled with that. And that's where I fell into the trap of doing things that wasn't conducive or healthy. But it was the moment that I realized who I was and whose I was. Everything began to change, right? Because I had connection to my heritage. And so that's what I'm really big on, is helping those dads understand who they are and whose they are, and connect that connection to the child. Like, man, listen, that child need to know where they come from, what's their DNA, the bumps, the bruises, all of that. That is what will help cultivate that young boy or young girl when they know where they come from, give them a sense of pride. Because just, a lot of them that I work with, they don't know where they come from. Right? They don't know who they connected to, but the moment they have that connection, everything begins to open up. And so that's my message that I send to a lot of my families.
And we need to grab onto that as people, no matter, who we are.
Yeah.
And so in this last minute and a half that we have, I want to finish by asking each one of you to give me one phrase, one sentence to look in that camera and tell youth that this is what has helped you and what they can aspire to, because they all have talent and they all have something in them that they need to share with the world. So we'll start with you, Chef Nate.
I'll just say you are the superhero. You don't have to look out, anywhere for that superhero. That superhero is within. I grew up in Genesee County. I grew up in Flint. I used to work at a farm. And, you fast forward in life, I've had a chance to cook for some of the most famous people in the world, and I'm from right here. And like he said, it's about recognizing that, everything you need is right inside of here. And no matter what anybody says, like, you're
right
special and you can do it.
Charlie, sentence.
I would say that there's no such thing as a giftless child of God. We all have gifts and talents that are needed, that the community needs. When I look at my own personal journey, I never saw myself coming back to Flint.
Yes.
And not only just coming back to Flint, but picking up gifts and talents and skills that I had put down when I left for college, and picking them right back up to give back to the community.
Thank you. Thank you. Sean, we'll let you finish.
Yeah, mine is simple. Don't chase the bag, chase the assignment.
Wow.
Right? That's it. Just chase your assignment. Whatever your assignment, don't chase the bag, because the bag will chase you.
I am so thankful for all of you, and I know this entire community is. Chef Nate Brown, Charlie Dobson, Sean Hart, thank you from the bottom of my heart and many for what you do in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
I
coming
appreciate
together
it.
for this important discussion.
All right. Thanks to Stella and her panel for that enlightening conversation. Now a take on some more history that you may not know about. When you think music and the early days of African Americans in the recording industry, you almost immediately think Motown Records, founded by Berry Gordy Jr. in Detroit. But there was another Black-owned record company pumping out soulful vinyl 6 years before Motown. And as Courtney Bennett reports, Flint's New McCree Theater is telling the VJ Records story in a stage production.
We are telling African-American stories in the African-American voice.
The story of VJ Records is one you might not have heard of.
We think Motown was the very first record company, and VJ Records paved the way for Motown.
Pat Hill does all the marketing and costumes at the New McCree Theater. She says audiences will learn about this missing piece of history.
It was a husband and wife team. They were Vivian and James Bracken, and they started it in their garage with $500.
Hill says this story is seldom told, but an important one. Like all the plays and musicals, the New McCree Theater brings to life on stage.
We are the 9th Black theater company that owns their own building.
Having their own building means they can bring to life these stories, ones that will move audiences or teach them something they didn't know.
Any little bit of Black history or history that people can gather, it makes them, to me, it makes them a little bit more important, as well as they should be prideful.
Our thanks again to Courtney Bennett for that report. You still have time to see VJ Records. The production runs through March 6th. Again, it's at the New McCree Theater on Clio Road in Flint. Well, turning to northern Michigan now, if you drive down Clarion Avenue in Petoskey, you'll see a for sale sign on a wooded lot with nothing else but the remains of what clearly looks like the foundation of a home. It's hard to imagine that a once very important place for African Americans in northern Michigan once stood on this property. As Mark Chalette reports, the Rainbow Inn has been gone for a long time, but its message to the community is one that many hope will never fade.
By the 1940s and 50s, it was the summer Midwest Riviera for people all over the Midwest to come to. They always came with their, quote, help, which would mean their servants, their cooks, their nannies, their chauffeurs.
And in the 1950s, that help was, for the most part, Black, at a time when even up north, it was clear there were two very different sets of rules.
It was an unwritten rule that you just didn't park in a bar or a restaurant or a hotel that catered to whites.
And that's just the way it was, until a train rolled into town in 1949, carrying a man with a vision.
Well, Thomas West was a chef on the Pennsylvania Railroad. He saw this building that was for sale.
That building once stood here, right across from the rail tracks that brought Thomas and his wife to town. They bought the 1880s lumber baron mansion that had fallen into disrepair and turned it into a boarding house and restaurant. They called it the Rainbow Inn, a place that would welcome all shades of color, but whose most frequent customers were the help that had few other places to go.
They were given a Friday or Saturday night off. They went to the Rainbow, and that's where they enjoyed themselves.
And for years, that's exactly what they did. Mr. West worked in the kitchen while his family helped keep guests happy, and in the process provided a very important place for those who couldn't turn elsewhere.
He was trying to cater to Blacks of the city to come north and not be afraid to come north because they know they have a place to stay. So he tried to make a nice establishment, and I think he did.
14 years after it opened, things changed at the Rainbow and across the country.
The Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964, the summer, and all of a sudden, you didn't have to have the rainbow inns anymore in the United States. Everybody had to be accommodated where they wanted to sleep, or they wanted to eat, or they wanted to drink.
So the need for places like the Rainbow Inn faded away. And just 1 year later, so did the inn itself.
In the end, he had a fire caused by a wood-burning furnace, and nobody really knows for sure, but it probably started in the chimney and it went up like a tinderbox.
Today, only the inn's foundation remains, a skeleton of what once stood here. A small reminder of where it was, where we were, and how far we've come.
Thank you to Mark Chalette. Well, we have taken you to Flint, Detroit, Lansing, and Petoskey. Now it's time to visit West Michigan. Here's my colleague, Princess Janae Stephenson in Kalamazoo.
Thanks, Mike. Our team has been covering Black history all month long in Kalamazoo, and a part of that includes what students are learning in the classroom. News Channel 3's Tiana Barnes talked with 2 instructors at a West Michigan school who have been covering key Black leaders and history makers.
Black history is American history, and it would be impossible to cover it all in a single month. Both of the teachers you'll hear from have been teaching for over 2 decades, and the one thing they have in common is their approach when it comes to teaching these invaluable pieces of history. Take a look.
Voices are off, your eyes are forward.
This February morning in Mrs. Roy's art class is just like any other.
Tell me why.
Students are recreating the work of famous artist Charles McGee.
Black, green, and red, those opposites are necessary to create harmony. I choose those colors, I choose the shapes in order to create that equilibrium.
It's one of the lessons Roy's intentionally saves for Black History Month.
What I'm gonna have you do is cut these into strips.
But for her second graders, it's just another day where these young artists get to play with Sharpies.
Please don't draw on your neighbors.
Roy's never mentions McGee's race when teaching her class how to use these tools to replicate his art. She said this because she celebrates all cultures, no matter the time of year.
I try to incorporate diversity and different cultures in my everyday lessons because it helps the kids feel more included and part of their school community to be represented in these lessons.
From Mexican sugar skulls to depictions of the Selma Montgomery marches, Roy's classroom showcases her effort to let her students know they don't have to wait for special holidays or Black History Month to be included.
It's important to celebrate all of those cultures, and when I'm talking about Vincent van Gogh, I don't specifically say, oh, this is a white artist.
And I need you sitting crisscross applesauce.
Roy's colleague, Mrs. Swinehart, takes a similar approach to Black history, reading a poetry book to her class.
True freedom is a song we should all be able to sing.
Pointing out the use of symbolism in other writing tools. The poems, like this one, just so happen to be telling Black stories.
Discrimination will no longer to be tolerated. Hate will have nowhere to hide.
The poetry, a hidden message of lessons learned.
Last year, we had an African-American boy, and he's like, well, I'm African-American, I'm a poet, and I'm an author, so that he wrote his own, so that was really cool.
Swinehart pulls from her experience teaching in Detroit, showing students the importance of year-round representation in schools.
We want to make sure that they understand we're all in this together.
A diversity each child can see in themselves, whether an artist, a writer, or world leader. Swinehart tells me that Comstock STEM Academy still has a few special events scheduled in honor of Black History Month. In the coming weeks, they'll host a family event called the African American Poetry Reading, and students will also participate in virtual field trips to the National Museum of African American History and Culture and the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. In studio, Tiana Barnes, News Channel 3.
And in celebration of Black History Month, we're highlighting the work of a pastor from Battle Creek who's trying to make her community better. Dr. Monique French started the Recover Our Neighborhood project. It's aimed at revitalizing the shuttered Washington Heights neighborhood in Battle Creek, and the work is finally nearing completion thanks to grants from community partners. News Channel 3's Autumn Pitcher shows us how French's dream is now becoming a reality.
Dr. Monique French remembers her Washington Heights neighborhood as being filled with life. But over the years, she says it's become run down, and that's why she wants to rebuild and make it a welcoming place for all. The Washington Heights neighborhood in Battle Creek is on track to reach new heights.
This used to be a predominantly African-American community, and it was a affluent community. But because of disinvestment, the community has kind of changed a little bit. So we just wanted to bring that vitality back.
Pastor Monique French says major milestones are being hit on the project she began 3 years ago. Her church, Washington Heights United Methodist, is fixing up old rundown homes while working with developers to build new ones. The first of 17 new homes that will be added on Greenwood Avenue is in the process of being built.
Right now, they're preparing the top of the concrete wall
with a treated plate.
And it's an exciting time for neighbors like Sherry Plato.
It brings the value of the area up. It brings better class of people in.
Sales representative Jim Nichols showing me blueprints for the 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes. Once complete, they'll range between $180,000 and $230,000.
There's a really shortage of housing here in the city of Battle Creek, and so we just wanted to bring about a change.
Change that also includes restoring area playgrounds and repairing older homes.
Furnaces, roofs, windows, things that can help people in the long run cut costs on energy.
Joey Hall, a longtime resident, is happy to see her neighborhood thriving once again.
We need community to be unified, and I think in helping everybody out, neighbors are going to feel better about their homes.
French says the church has only secured funding so far for 2 homes, and they're looking for more community partners. She adds that once they get additional funding, they hope to have all the homes finished in 2 years. In studio, Autumn Pitcher, News Channel 3.
Autumn, Tiana, Princess, thank you very much. Each February does provide a focused opportunity to explore the many contributions that African Americans have made over time. As we end that month and move into March and the rest of this year, it's important to remember that Black history, like all history, resonates year-round. Embrace it, celebrate it, and treasure it always. For my talented colleagues here at Mid-Michigan Now, at Up North Live, and at News Channel 3, thanks for joining us for this Michigan Black History Digital Special. I'm Mike Woolfolk in Flint. We'll see you soon.